Hi everyone, Full Metal Jayce here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over everything that you need to know going forward into Season 9 for Jayce. Now, there's a little bit to talk about before we get into today's video, discussing the runes and the most optimal build path that I personally feel. And we're going to start with the first change that happened for Jayce in patch 9.1, which was the input buffering to his QE, so his E could no longer be canceled if you were in mid-cast of your Q, which that's explained in other videos, but I'll go over it again briefly if I need to. The next thing that happened to Jayce was in patch 9.2, for those that are familiar, his auto attacks were finally tuned properly to where they were not being canceled or stuttered or delayed by an extreme amount. Uh, and then in patch 9.3, they buffed Last Whisper with the changes to the 80 carry items. So they made Last Whisper a much, much more efficient item to be built in the build path. Um, and I'll have a link down below in the description with my infographic explaining the changes. And then in patch 9.4, which I had known about this for a little while, which is why I delayed making the guide for so long. But in patch 9.4, as you see in front of me, the Conqueror page was released. Now, the thing about the Conqueror page, before we get into the video, as you can see here on the tooltip, it says that you gain 3 to 15 adaptive force. But I just want to let you guys know that there was actually a hotfix done to this, to where instead of it being 3 to 15 adaptive force, it's actually 2 to 10 adaptive force, because they realized they released it too strong. And for some reason, even though they had it on the PvE for 4 weeks, they felt like it was balanced there. But the second it went live, within 24 hours, they had to tune it down a bit because they don't have anything to test it apparently. So, but that's another video. Anyway, so the thing that's so strong with Conqueror on Jayce is the fact that Jayce is able to proc the Conqueror combo so easily, which is what I'm going to be referring to later in the video, is with Jayce, the way you engage on Jayce in hammer form, when you Q on a target with your AoE active and you auto attack that target as you land, you instantaneously proc 3 stacks of Conqueror, and then all you have to do is auto attack them and hit your E to knock them back. Or if you're skilled enough, you can E auto them, and as you're hitting them, as they're flying back, you proc Conqueror that way, and you can finish out the engage in your cannon form, chasing them down with a full 8-second proc because you activated it in hammer form before swapping. Um, and we'll explain that more. So, again, the reason why I feel this rune page is so viable for Jayce is because of the way it's able to be efficiently stacked on Jayce through his abilities because of his kit, on top of the fact that he has Hypercharge, which I will explain also, because, again, he's able to activate Hypercharge after he autos someone and get 3 autos off instantly, which gives you 4 stacks if you do it properly. And then if you time it properly, as you're making the last auto attack connect, you can form swap to melee and have Conqueror register in melee form for 8 seconds instead of 2 seconds that they hotfixed it to, but didn't change the tooltip for some reason. And then the next thing in the rune page is Triumph. I cannot tell you how many times I have had my ass saved because because I had a Triumph proc after the fight where I killed someone and they ignited me out of spite and I survived through a last tick, or I get multiple takedowns in a team fight and all of a sudden we kill 3 people and boom, 30% of my HP is back magically. And then the thing about Bloodline, this actually got recently buffed when patch 9.3 hit because of the way they changed it. It went from 8% lifesteal to 16% lifesteal, but then they nerfed it from 16 to 14 to 12. And the reason why this one's so efficient is because you're able to get the stacks early, and it allows you to scale onward into the game. And after 15 minutes or so, or even pre-20 most of the time, you get 12% permanent lifesteal that is incorporated into your kit that you never have to build. And then the next benefit is coup de grace, obviously. You get 7% more damage below 40% HP targets, which that applies to your Conqueror once it's procced. So if they're below 40% HP, you gain extra damage on your true damage. Well, extra damage overall, which thus converts it to more true damage. Um, And then the next thing is the secondary runes. I've been getting a lot of mixed opinions on what secondary runes to run, but I honestly feel this is the best page because you're able to get the best sustain and it's the most efficient going into the game. Because I've had people ask me, hey FMJ, why don't you run Mana Flow and say Transcendence or Mana Flow and Absolute Focus? Now, I'm not saying it's a bad secondary page to run, as to each their own, but in my personal experience, if you're able to manage your mana properly, you don't need the extra mana. And if you have absolute focus and you're below 70% HP, you're not benefiting from it only when you're above 70% HP, which a lot of times when you're trading or if you're going through a prolonged trade, you will oftentimes drop below that threshold. And then Transcendence is the same reason I don't run that, is because the build path that I run is more than enough to CDR cap me and then some if I build like a Death's Dance as a 5th item, because that gives me 10% CDR over the build. Or if I didn't build a Dust Blade, which I'll explain in the build paths in a second, I still get CDR cap because I got Death's Dance. But yeah, so the reason why I feel Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter are the best in slot Keystones is because with Taste of Blood, the amount of early game sustain you get from doing a trade on someone is out of this world. You heal for, like I said, anywhere from 20 to 30 health early, plus it heals off, or it scales with your bonus AD, so the more AD you have, the more you heal early. And again, this is just such a good keystone for early game trades because, say, like an Ari Qs you, or a Zed Qs you, or Oriana Qs you, or something autos you, you're able to just turn, auto them back, and not only did you out trade them in damage because of the way Jayce is most of the time, you also healed, which makes you sustain better in lane, and then you just wait 20 seconds to do it again. And then for Ravenous Hunter, the thing about Ravenous Hunter is you heal from the damage dealt by your abilities. And what I learned recently, a little while ago, is Conqueror, when max stacked, the true damage that gets converted from the the damage that gets converted, the true damage from the Conqueror proc, actually heals you in total to Ravenous Hunter. So what I mean is, if I land a Shock Blast on someone from across the lane with a max stacked Conqueror, right, to snipe them out, and I have, coup de grace, and then I have, say, 3 out of 5 Rav stacks, which is 9% healing, because 2.5 times 3 plus 1.5 is 9, or 7.5, plus 1.5 is 9, and that's 3 stacks. But like I said, at 5 stacks, you get 14% of your damage dealt healed. And if you look closely, you see how it says healing is reduced to 1/3 for area of effect abilities. The thing is, you still heal off of what you hit, whether it's one target or it's multiple targets, but the true damage proc from what you hit, whether it's 1 or 3 targets, the actual healing from the true damage is considered a single target ability because the true damage is on one target. And I know it sounds confusing, and I'll explain it real quick again, but with Conqueror and Ravenous Hunter, say you have all 5 stacks at 20 minutes, you heal for 24% of the damage dealt from Conqueror, because the way Conqueror interacts with Ravenous Hunter is you heal from true damage. So true damage is a single target damaging ability, which thus gives you the full value out of Ravenous Hunter, which is why this keystone is just absurd. I've literally landed Shock Blasts and have healed for 500. And that's not including a Death's Dance. That's just from Conqueror and Ravenous Hunter. If we add Death's Dance to our build, which we do in the build thing I'll explain, you're able to heal for over 30% of the damage you deal on a single target ability. And then if it's AoE, obviously it's a little bit diminished, but it's still an insane amount. So now that I went over the rune page, let's go right into the build path. It's really straightforward. There is 2 different build paths that I will be discussing. The first one is the core path to get when you're ahead, as you should always try to rush this item path every single game, as it's the most efficient and the most optimal build path to carry and scale with Jayce. And then the second build path is a more tank verse oriented build path that allows you to scale versus hyperscaling tanks like, say, Sejuani, Malphite, Ornn, Galio, any Aftershock abusing champion, any champion that rushes arm guard, tabbies, etc. Like any champion that benefits from getting early armor and can still outtrade you, it's very difficult to beat. So that's why you have to go this build to scale against them. So we're gonna start with our longsword refillable potion every single time. I put these here for the upgrades for later because as you should always try to get a vision ward on every back if you're able to. You always want to prioritize your first back to be a Dirk, and the reason why that is because the power spike you get from the Dirk is so optimal for the early game that it allows you to basically just all-in combo anyone at any moment if you do it properly because they just don't expect damage or they don't respect it either. So your first back will always try to be a Dirk Rush, and then again, if you're ahead, you always rush Ghost Blade as a first item 100% of the time. Every single game I play, I always get Ghost Blade 100% of the time as a first item, as it is the core item build, or the core item for Jayce, period. And then, like I said, the build variance based on how well you're doing / what kind of comp you're against. So if you're doing really well and you're able to get your second item before 20 minutes, which a majority of the time you see me do as I explain, the build path live on stream, I always go Ghostblade into Duskblade, and then if I'm doing really well and I want to finish out my CDR and I want to scale and hit my 3-item power spike, you get Black Cleaver third, because that way you get not only CDR capped, you get double lethality, you have bonus armor shred plus movement speed, CDR, and health. But then after these 3 items are done, you're able to incorporate your build a little bit differently based on the game that you're playing. So after your first 3 core items are done, that leaves your last 2 items to be a variable, which in most cases it's always going to be Death Stance Last Whisper, or it's going to be Last Whisper GA, or it's going to be Death Stance Last Whisper and say or not Death Stance Last Whisper, but you get the point. Like these are what I feel are the most optimal last 2 items. Next to that, like I said, the tank busting build is basically the exact same. You go Ghostblade as your first item every time, but your second item, because you need to scale against your opponents more efficiently quicker, you go Black Cleaver second, and then you finish off as your third item, your core item, as a Last Whisper, so you can have that 3-item power spike against the opponents that are building heavy armor. And with the changes to Last Whisper, it's now more efficient because you get 20 attack damage and 20 armor pin, which gives you a value of 1,300 gold, or I'm sorry, 700 gold is the attack damage value, and then the other split gold that you invest is the armor pin value that you get out of it. So you're spending 750 gold for 20% armor pin, when the old value used to be you were spending, I believe it was 850 gold, and you were only getting 10% armor pin value. So you can see the massive buff there, which I'll have explained in the link down below for the infographic, so you can kind of understand it more with numbers. But yeah, that's the basis of the build and runes. I'm going to also have a link down below explaining the advanced Jayce combos and tips and tricks, because ultimately what I decided is I don't need to record another 15 minutes of footage, because the tips and tricks video that I will include down below is exactly the same. That has not been outdated for the preseason, and it explains all the like the advanced mechanics, the tips and tricks, how to wall hop, how to do E-auto, how to do any combo you can think of on Jayce. That video has it, and it's just the best video I've done, so it gives everything fluid explanation. But otherwise, thank you for watching this video. I hope I explained everything in thorough detail, and please feel free to ask me any questions you have down below. Otherwise, yeah, I thank you guys for watching. Be sure to tune in to my live streams daily or through my YouTube content. And apart from that, Full Metal Jayce out.